Good afternoon and happy Wednesday. Thanks for joining us here for another edition of our 10 Weather Impact Show. I'm meteorologist Aaron White.
I'm meteorologist Michael Behrens. Cloudy and cool early today.
A little different, especially
Yeah.
after yesterday where we had, the sunshine, a couple
hot.
storms, 91 degrees. It felt like about 94, I think was one of our peak heat index values.
Yeah.
So a little toasty yesterday, but a different story today. It actually feels nice, even though it's still a little humid out there, but not bad.
I mean, we've finally gotten a substantial weather system through here, something that's not just heat and humidity driven storms, and it's actually, like you said, provided some relief to the heat.
Yeah, and it's going to stick around at least for a couple of days. We will see a warm up though, but I will say, and we've been talking about this a little bit, the big cool down that's looming for next week. So
even bigger than now.
Yeah, so get ready for that. So let's dive into the forecast here as we talk about what's going on today. Throughout the morning hours and even into this afternoon, there's been a lot of cloud cover, a few peaks of sunshine here and there, but still quite a bit of cloud cover. And we're seeing winds actually out of the north, and that's ushering in, of course, in these cooler conditions. But what is also happening, and something you'll want to note if you are heading up towards Lake Erie, if you're thinking about a beach day anytime soon, likely not a good idea here today or tomorrow because the winds that are really strong, especially closer to the lake, they are causing some higher rip current risk across the Lake Erie along the lakeshore there in northern Ohio. So do consider that. Conditions will improve as we head into the weekend though. So if you're thinking about maybe then heading up there, not a bad idea, especially when we're talking about more sunshine and warmer temperatures as we get into our Friday, and especially here for the weekend before that even bigger cool down arrives here going into next week. But as we talk about things here for today, again, we saw a lot of cloud cover this morning into this afternoon, starting to see a little bit more breaks in some of the clouds and a few more peaks of sunshine. There have been a couple spotty showers around as well, a little bit of drizzle here and there. That's going to continue, but really all this is going to be falling apart. However, the clouds will stick around as we head into the overnight hours. A couple more showers could develop here as well, and we're really not talking about a widespread chance of rain. Notice here on the radar as we go into the afternoon tomorrow, just spotty showers, maybe some drizzle around at best. So we're putting it at about 20 to 30% chance for a couple spotty showers across central Ohio here by noon tomorrow. Going to see that continue into the afternoon, really starting to taper off, and we'll actually get some sunshine as we wrap up our Thursday, and more sunshine is in the forecast as we head into our Friday and right on into the weekend. But as we talk about temperatures today, really held in check because of the cloud cover, holding us into the upper 70s. We'll see a high temperature this afternoon around 78 degrees, but also notice that wind out of the north about 10 to 15 miles per hour, so a bit of a breeze and even stronger winds potentially there again around Lake Erie where we have that beach hazards with that rip current risk because of those stronger winds pushing the waves and just causing a little bit more of a problem there around the lakeshore of Lake Erie. So watching that here today, we're going to see those winds continue going into tonight and tomorrow. A bit of a breeze. Tomorrow, though, with a little bit more sunshine, I think we'll get a little warmer, back closer to 80 degrees. We're cooling down to about 65 here tonight under a mostly cloudy sky. Winds will be a little lighter during the overnight hours, but they will pick up again here going into our Thursday. And then as mentioned, we have that nice cool down coming our way here next week. A nice early taste of fall-like weather here as we go into even as early as Sunday, but more likely Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and really sticking around through the entire 6 to 10 day forecast period here for much of the next work week. And really that leads us all the way to the end of August here. And we are talking about temperatures well below normal, not just by a few degrees. And one thing I do want to emphasize is our normal highs around the lower 80s, about 82, 83 degrees this time of year. So we are talking about temperatures about 5 to maybe as much as 15 degrees cooler across a large part of the Midwest, including all of Ohio, all the way back into Iowa, parts of Minnesota. Talk about temperatures in the 60s, 70s, and even getting closer to 80 degrees. So as we look ahead to our 7-day forecast, even today is cooler than normal. We do start to rise, though, as we head into Friday once we get more sunshine. Friday, mostly sunny skies, 84 for a high temperature. We peak at 87 here on Saturday. Humidity still around the next several days. Dew points are going to be in the 60s, but next week, we head into the end of the weekend and into next week when we get this cold front coming in, it's not just going to drop our temperatures, it's going to drop the humidity here as we look ahead to Sunday. So we got mostly sunny skies, 80 for a high here on Sunday, and then by Monday and Tuesday, there you go. We got some nice temperatures here. Mid 70s here Monday and Tuesday. Those overnight lows dipping down into the 50s here as we start off the work week. 56 for a morning low on Monday. And by Tuesday morning, we are down to 52 degrees. And I wouldn't be surprised if some areas here going into the next work week actually talk about temperatures down into the mid to upper 40s for some parts of Ohio. So I would say an early taste of fall, but we of course know that September can still bring some heat, so enjoy it, but just know that it's not going to stick around.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say we're really going to get into a fall-like pattern this early in the year. I mean, we're, like you said, we're known for having heat that goes into September.
Sure, yeah.
Even October sometimes.
Even October, yeah. So, I mean, it's a nice preview of fall, and I know some places are bringing back their pumpkin spice stuff happening next week, so good timing with the weather forecast here as we talk about those temperatures in the 70s feeling a bit more fall-like, but also nice for air conditioning. Don't have to worry about running that with those.
My power bill needs a break by a lot.
I think everyone's going to enjoy that nice break from those higher electric bills here as we head into the end of the week and going into next week with those temperatures overnight in the 50s. Open up the windows, get that fresh air in. It's going to be perfect.
Absolutely. And one thing that's not quite as nice as our temperatures is the tropical outlook out there. It's been getting kind of active here as we work our way deeper into the season, with Hurricane Erin making its way through the Atlantic. Communities along the East Coast are now preparing for harsh waves, high water, and potentially deadly rip currents.
Yeah, and Erin is still a Category 2 storm. It's not making landfall, of course, but it is already prompting some evacuations due to some of the North Carolina areas during the busiest travel days, and CBS's Jared Hill has the latest on that.
The waves are building as Hurricane Erin barrels closer to North Carolina's coast.
Well, you run from the water, and that's what our problem is going to be, is that the waves are going to be huge.
The storm is forecasted to pass well offshore, but visitors to the Outer Banks have been evacuating, with the potential for high water to wash over the only road out.
Going to create some very dangerous ocean conditions along the entire U.S. East Coast, and the potential for life-threatening storm surge inundation across portions of the North Carolina Outer Banks.
Some residents, like the O'Sullivans, are taking their chances.
We have plenty of supplies, and not our first rodeo. Definitely prepared.
The red flags were out at Wrightsville Beach in the southern part of the state, warning beachgoers about hidden dangers in the water.
The messaging is stay out of the ocean.
Similar warnings in New York.
It'll create hazardous conditions along Long Island South Shore through Thursday night.
And New Jersey, just days after one person was killed in a rip current.
Going in the ocean for the next number of days is something you got to avoid.
As Erin flies through the Atlantic, look at this bird's eye view of the massive storm, a marvel that could prove to be a danger. Jared Hill, CBS News.
And we continue to watch the latest on Hurricane Erin this afternoon. And Michael, I know we have been watching this really for several days, of course, as it was a Category 5 over the weekend. It's gone under some weakening here the last couple of days, encountering some wind shear, some dry air, but still looks like a pretty impressive storm.
Yeah, still definitely an impressive storm out there, and one that we're going to be watching as we head through the next couple of days, because even some of those outer bands, in addition to just what we're seeing with the rip current risk and the wave risk, could even hit the Carolinas. So definitely something to keep a close eye on. I want to show you the latest information we have on Hurricane Erin as we work our way through the early part of Wednesday. Still a Category 2 storm. Those winds up to 100 miles per hour. A large and not quite as organized storm as what we saw down in the Caribbean, but still definitely a very powerful storm with gusts up to 120 miles per hour and that pressure down to 948. The path for this storm, taking it up along the U.S. East Coast. Again, and not expected to make a landfall as it does move along the coast, but it is expected to maintain that Category 2 strength at least through the end of the week, according to the latest forecast. And again, you can already see some of those outer bands getting pretty close to the Carolinas here, and we do have tropical storm warnings in place along the North Carolina coast and tropical storm watches that go all the way up to southern portions of Maryland. So again, we'll have to keep a close eye on the storm as it moves along that coastal region. By 2 p.m. tomorrow, still expected to have a Category 2 strength, but thankfully by that point starting to move away from the East Coast. But again, those waves and rip currents are going to be one of the big hazards to watch with this storm. As that continues to track out into the Atlantic, heading deeper into this week, by Friday expected to drop to a Category 1 by that point, kind of off the coast of really Maine up there, if you were to take that out far enough, eventually weakening as it heads off into the North Atlantic by the weekend. But this is still expected to be a strong storm for a number of days, and one that we'll be keeping a close eye on. The hour-by-hour forecast related to Hurricane Erin, again, working its way closer to the Carolinas as we head toward Wednesday evening. By the time we get into early Thursday, this is hopefully going to start to make that turn. But again, you can see how close this gets here to North Carolina, really parts of Virginia. This could throw some of those outer bands into those areas, providing with them some rain. And of course, some of those bands of hurricanes occasionally spin up a tornado risk. So we'll have to keep a close eye on that as we work our way deeper into the day. Thursday starts to move away from the shoreline, and then by the time we head toward Thursday evening, early Friday, finally starting to put some distance between that storm and the U.S. East Coast. So hopefully it stays on that track. Bigger picture here across the tropics shows we're not going to be done after we get past Erin. Again, you can see Erin there kind of starting to redevelop an eye as of early Wednesday. So it'll be interesting to see if that does strengthen at least a little bit more. But there's more disturbances back out across the central portions of the Atlantic that will be heading our way eventually. And both of those actually have about a 60% or 40 to 60% chance of development. The one that we'll be watching most recently is this disturbance out here that's kind of following right in the footsteps of Erin. This would go right up along that same path almost toward Puerto Rico, just off to the northeast. While it's not expected to do anything in the next 2 days, over the next 7 days, once it enters those more warm and unstable waters, we do get back up to about a 60% chance of development with that system. So we're entering that active season here when it comes to the tropics.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we get to the peak around the mid-September time frame, so not surprising to see a little bit more activity with after Erin and maybe a couple more areas of development. Hopefully, a lot of them stay out over the Atlantic, but of course, we'll be watching that for any impacts.
Absolutely. I mean, they present their own dangers even when they stay out to sea, but definitely prefer that option versus something making landfall in the U.S.
Yeah, definitely, because of course we've had big storms over the last several years, and really don't want to have to deal with that anytime soon. And something that we're also being kind of keeping an eye on, thanks to climate change. Severe weather is becoming more extreme, with hurricanes intensifying, just like we saw with Erin, intensifying faster, and wildfires spreading even farther.
Yeah, now researchers say the way that people perceive these threats and warnings needs to change, along with the way that we prepare. Ivan Rodriguez reports.
The impact of Hurricane Erin is already being felt on U.S. coastlines. Around 90 rip current rescues were conducted in North Carolina Monday. In New Jersey, weather conditions are worsening.
We have a rip current warning, we have rough surf warning, we have storm warning, and conditions are bad.
Although Erin isn't forecast to make landfall, the strength of the storm serves as a reminder to prepare.
We always say when we talk about hurricanes, for example, don't wait until the storm warnings have been issued. It's too late.
Part of being prepared is building a kit of emergency supplies.
The toolkit doesn't need to be complex, but it should have specific things in there.
That includes medicine, critical documents, tools, at least a 3-day supply of food, as well as a hygiene and sanitation kit, according to FEMA. Mark Friedlander says another crucial piece is insurance.
Insurance is all about financial protection. So it's not just property insurance for your home, your condo, or your renter's policy if you're an apartment renter, but it's flood coverage.
Flooding isn't often covered in standard home insurance plans, so it's important to check your policy. Other ways to prepare your home before a storm include testing your shutters and securing your outdoor space.
The goal is to create a behavior to be prepared, not a reaction.
In Atlanta, I'm Ivan Rodriguez.
And finally today, let's check out some new video into us here at 10 TV. This is the view from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's hurricane hunters as they flew into the eye of Hurricane Erin. This was earlier this past weekend as it was a Category 5.
Just wild watching them go from inside the eye wall, the most extreme part of the storm, and then it just opens up. Clear skies, and I think at some point in the video,
as he's about to turn the camera, you'll see the big blue sky here. Any second.
That one.
3, 2,
there we go.
There it goes. There we go. I knew he did it.
just look at that view, that as they call the stadium effect, where you are inside the eye and you just look up. It looks like a stadium, and just wild to see that clear blue sky right above it.
Eerily calm there in the middle as well. Of course, the hurricane hunters, they fly into these storms to gather data for the Hurricane Center to help forecast these storms better, because you can't really get that information really any other way.
No, and I mean they put themselves in at risk and stuff. They know what they're doing. They're flying into the storm. They have the equipment available that's necessary with the different planes that they fly at different levels of the storm, and then just being able to get the equipment in there, get measurements for giving better forecasts. Of course, with the hurricane track that you were showing there, keeping it of course away from land here with this storm.
Yeah. Absolutely key part of that forecast, and you can see right there, right back into the storm.
Right back into it, yeah. And check this one out. This is another view of Erin, actually from space. The cameras on the International Space Station captured Hurricane Erin on Tuesday. The space station was just passing by and clearly showing, as we've seen, just a large hurricane as it has been even undergoing this weakening trend, but just really becoming a bit more expansive now on the picture.
Yeah, I mean, when we were tracking that storm just a few minutes ago, I mean, even though down to a Category 2, probably about covering as large of an area as it ever has as far as a storm. And it's almost counterintuitive, because when the storms are real tight and compact is actually kind of when they're stronger. But the further north they get, these things just kind of spread out and become massive.
Yeah, I mean, we see that with I feel like almost every hurricane. They're really small, compact. They're very intense. One that rings a bell was Hurricane Wilma back in 2005, and even Hurricane Katrina. It got to a Category 5. It was rather small, and then it started to grow in size and weaken, even though it made landfall and did a lot of devastation. But still, kind of wild to see what's happening with Hurricane Erin now.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we said, we're going to have to keep a close eye on it in the coming days as it continues to work its way along the East Coast. Forecast for now, keeping it off the coast, which is good news. But of course, we're going to continue to watch it because it's still expected to be a Category 2 for some time.
Yeah, and watching that, and of course watching everything else that's going to be potentially developing out in the tropics. But then of course watching our weather forecast here as we again talk about that big cool down that I feel like everyone's ready for, getting rid of that humidity.
Absolutely.
And some nicer weather that we can enjoy here next week. So that'll do it for us here today. Thanks for joining us again here on our 10 Weather Impact Show. Coming up later on this evening, Chief Meteorologist Jerry Martz will be in. So until then, you can catch more news and weather online at 10tv.com.
Have a great afternoon.